Good day and welcome to the Archdiocese Marriage and Family Week 2021. Let's keep making this journey as families. Let us keep walking together. This is day 3, everyone, and we are still excited. Would you believe we are still excited for this week's events? We still have a lot of daily prayer activities, family activities, and lots of informative discussions going on, right, for this week of marriage and family. So if you and your family would like to participate in our activities, be sure to check out our EFLC Facebook page, our Instagram website. We're on all the media aspects, houses, platforms for the calendar events. So make sure you download it, you screenshot it, so you're up with it so you don't miss anything else. So today's theme is Children Are Gift. So the quote of the day will be children are gift. Each one is unique and irreplaceable. This is from Memorial Laetitia 170. But each day this week, from 12 to 12:30, we will have a conversation with the EFLC ministry. Our ministries provide a wealth of support and, of course, experience and knowledge and growth to the community as we journey through this beautiful life. And today's conversation, we actually have Original Pain Therapy, OPT, with us. So I'm going to get straight into the introductions with our lovely guests. We have Lorraine Pouchette and Nicholas Boisdet. So I'm going to introduce them and give you a little background on these two lovely individuals I have with me today. So ladies first, Mrs. Lorraine Pouchette is an original pain therapist, has been in practice since 1995. And has extensive experience in case management of individuals and conducting of workshops in both OPT, original pain therapy, and therapy, as well as trauma and grief counseling. She also facilitates motivational sessions and team builders for both youth and adults. Mrs. Pouchette holds a diploma in inner child healing, as well as certificates in counseling and psychology, critical incident and disaster management for social workers, trauma counseling, understanding the complexity of childhood traumatic stress. She interned under Sister Helena Profero, if I'm pronouncing that right, who also had a master's in psychology, who introduced this methodology to Trinidad with the express permission of John Bradshaw from the US, who pioneered the inner child work as a means of inner healing and self-development. So that's Mrs. Lorraine Pouchette. Ooh, nice. Now we have Mr. Nicholas Anthony Boisdet, is also an original pain therapist and a counseling psychologist. He earned a master's degree from the University of the Southern Caribbean in 2015, where his emphasis was in marriage and family therapy. His research thesis was forgiveness and marital satisfaction among Catholic married couples. He is also a full member of the Trinidad and Tobago Association of Psychologists and a founder and director of the Association of Original Pain Therapists. Mr. Boisdet has also been facilitating original pain therapy workshops since 2006 and providing the associated individual counseling since 2009. He is currently in private practice and engages a broad range of clients, individuals, and couples who are seeking help with their mental wellness. To effectively treat his clients, Mr. Boisdet employs an eclectic mix of approaches, including the original pain therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, mindfulness, neuro-linguistic programming, and positive psychology. So you all know we have some equipped people here today. So welcome, guys, and thank you so much for participating in today's events with the EFLC ministry. So my first question to you guys, whoever wants to take it, what is OPT? Tell us about OPT and a little bit of its history.
Okay, thank you so much, and thank you for that wonderful introduction. We are really very pleased to have this opportunity, and as Nicholas would say, the grace to be on the program this morning. Well, in the late 1980s, early 1990s, Sister Helena Profero was studying psychology in the United States of America. And what happened is that she realized that the university that she was involved in had a lot of new age methodologies. And of course, she wasn't too keen on that. She was a Carmelite nun, and it went against her spirit. She said she was about to give up the studies when she came across the work of John Bradshaw. And he was doing a lot of work on the inner child. He's a psychologist. He was a psychologist. He's passed now from the United States of America. And she was totally blown away. That's the word she used to me. She was blown away by his work. So she finished her program. She came back to Trinidad and she started doing the work in the early 1990s, putting together the program for the original pain therapy. Around that time, I met her quite by accident she was the spiritual director of Clark and Batu when my father had passed. And I met her through that. And she asked if I would be interested in coming to one of her courses. She was just doing from the infancy stage upwards. Nicholas will go into those stages. He was just doing from the infancy stage upwards, but she was doing research on the womb experience. And she asked if I would assist her with that. So I went and I attended the first course that she did from infancy up. And I think it was just like, when you have this aha moment, well, this is what I'm supposed to be doing with my life. I'm not supposed to be in banking. I'm supposed to be doing this. It just gripped me. And I got very involved with her. I followed her like how the disciples followed Jesus everywhere she went to give a talk, to give a workshop. I was with her. And we developed this, what we call hybrid of Bradshaw's work, which was to include the prenatal stage of development, because we felt that it was in the womb that most of the issues started based on the experiences we were having. We actually were looking for a name to call our work because it was not exactly John Bradshaw's work. So we wrote him, we couldn't find a name. We wrote him and we asked him for permission to use his name, but letting him know it was a hybrid of his work. And this work was being done all over the United States of America in different places. And he said, he wrote us back, he gave full permission to use it on one caveat, that we sent him the work that we did for the prenatal and give him permission to use that.
Wow,
it was a good exchange. Not so, Nicholas, that was an exchange. That was a very good exchange.
Yeah.
So when I was with Sister for about 2 years, she said, listen to me, young lady, you need to go and get that piece of paper that says you can do this properly, right? I said, oh, sister, I have to go back to school. She said, yes. I said, I have 4 children. She said, you still have to go back to school. So I did, and I got my certification and so on. And as Nicholas will attest to, we have been continuously on a learning curve in the association. We attend courses, we continue to develop ourselves because new things are happening every day, especially with the brain, and we need to understand everything. So I got involved with Sister, and she, a tiny little woman, but very powerful. And Sister died on the 23rd of April, 2014. But before, in 2013, she said we needed to register as an association, and she kind of handed the baton to me and said, you will be the team lead, and you must make me a promise that you will never, ever dilute the program that we are doing, that you'll be true to the tenets of the program, because the results are absolutely blew mine. And Bradshaw did say, and let me just refer to it, that he said, our earliest feelings, our beliefs, our memories, our core material formed in response to the stresses of our childhood environment. And he said it absolutely floored him, the immediate responses that you can get from taking part in this program. I just want to pass over to Nicholas now and ask Nicholas if he could just explain to everybody the 2 parts of the program, which will be the theory,
the workshop,
and which is the workshop and the therapy.
Sure.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for that, Lorraine, Crystal. Thank you very much for having us, and yes, for those wonderful introductions. I myself studied with Sister Helena and Lorraine, so I had the benefit of both of their experiences, and that was a tremendous learning curve. And so what we have in OPT here, the original pain therapy, the hybrid version that we do is a 5-week psychoeducational workshop. That's a big word. That means for the 5 weeks, we do a lot of teaching and education and sharing of information, and more importantly, experience centered around the different stages of early childhood development, starting with the prenatal experience. So in the womb, going all the way through adolescence. It is a very packed 5 weeks. It covers what can go wrong, and more importantly, what should go right, so that you have a healthy, functional adult coming out of that childhood experience. What we find, and the reason we say experiential, is that there are exercises in the workshop where we use techniques to help you get in touch with these things, without actually getting into your specific issues in the class for healing and change right there. It does not mean that healing does not begin. Many people tell us just the workshop does so much for them. At the end, that they are different people. And we see that. We see that. We see it quite often in changes. By week 3 or 4, we see changes in people because of what we've touched on, what we've explained. The follow-on to that would be the individual counseling, which is where you explore with myself, Lorraine, or one of the other members of the team, Renee or Anna, the in-depth detail and particular challenge that was your experience in childhood. We have techniques, the most powerful of which being our regressions, which take you through your childhood in a very directed manner. I know a lot of people are thinking, well, I can't remember when I was a child. Well, the way we approach it, most people remember all the way back to toddlerhood and before.
Wow.
We have gotten, in my experience, I have gotten a few people all the way back to the womb. Lorraine has very interesting, she's been doing it a little longer than me, just a little bit.
Yeah, so thank you, that makes me feel so young, Nicholas.
She has a few more stories than I do, but we've gotten people all the way back to the womb, and they can tell us about that womb experience and what it's like for them. And of course, you can't tell me about colors and details of conversations, and you wouldn't have understood, but the general pervasive feeling during that time in the womb, you can tell us about. You can tell us about what you felt and experienced in the womb, physically as well. So that all of that is very, very useful in helping us figure out what went wrong and where it went wrong.
Right.
And quite often we don't have to connect for a weekend. The client will tell us, oh, that's why I do this now as an adult. And yeah, we just confirm for them. And we help at that stage heal that initial hurt. So the adult behavior tends to resolve itself a lot more easily.
Yeah.
Can I pick up on what Nicholas said there about going as far back as to the womb? I'd really like to give a testimony on, and this was a blow mind even for me. A medical doctor did the course, and I regressed him back to the womb. And to my surprise and awe, when we reached the womb experience, he actually curled up in a fetal position in the chair. Wow. He started to shiver and shake, said the room was so cold. That was him coming out of his mother into the delivery room at the hospital. And he went through all the aspects of the birth process and entering into the world. Wow. And afterwards, he just sat there after we were finished, and he just sat there totally flabbergasted that he had been able to experience this. Of course, that was when I explained to him about the conscious, the subconscious, and the unconscious. That conscious is this, what we're doing now. Subconscious is pulling up a memory from some time in the past that we can easily access. But unconscious is where memories are buried that we don't ever have in our everyday environment at all. And some of them are quite traumatic. And I'll tell you the outcome of that. This doctor used to be encouraging young ladies who were pregnant, sending them to people to get, and himself doing abortions. After he did that program with me, he changed absolutely, completely. And what he did was he would send the young girls who would come to him to get counseling and to find ways to deliver their babies, even if they couldn't take care of their babies. So that is, I want to say that is the most dramatic experience I've had for the power of this work, not only for people to connect, but to actually change the way they approach
Right.
what they're doing with. And it goes back to what Sister always says. Each and every one of us is unique. We are imago Dei. We made in the image and likeness of God. And therefore, our role is to make sure that every single human being has the opportunity to become the very best that they can be. And I think Nicholas would also support the fact that even though we think we have everything together, we're on a spiritual journey with this, with that. If we don't know who we are, if we don't accept who we are, if we don't love who we are, if we don't forgive ourselves for our issues, it is very difficult for the grace of God to come into us and for us to progress spiritually.
Drifting in the
And this
dark.
is why we believe that this work is so critical and so important.
Yes.
Because I'll tell you, my spiritual journey has been absolutely awesome since I was involved in this work. Nicholas, you can support that in any way?
I most definitely. And I say that not for us only as Catholics, because we can apply this work. Yes, we are Catholic, both of us, and we have a very strong Catholic ethos, but this work applies to everyone. I have done this work, and I know Lorraine has as well, with Hindus, with Muslims, with atheists, with agnostics, with everybody.
Everybody.
And everybody connects.
Yeah.
Everybody has an experience. Everybody has that, because fundamentally, everybody is created by God, and God wants to connect with you in some way. So this is one of the ways we find getting people to connect with their authentic self helps them have a better experience of their understanding of God, whatever that God is to you.
Right. You know, Nicholas, when you talk about the Hindu, I recently, about 2 years ago, I interacted with a Hindu Pundit. And, you know, I asked him, one of the first questions I asked him was why he came to me. And he said when he was a young boy and he would have visions and different things happening, they thought he was crazy. And somebody in the family took him to see Father Harvey.
Right.
And Father Harvey said, this child has gifts which will be manifested in different ways to what you expect. So you need to let him grow. So he came to me because he was having some problems. And he said, it's just because of that interaction that he came to this Catholic counselor. Because he really wanted to get to the root causes of some of the things that were happening to him. And he was able to, as Nicholas says, do the work and truly find himself and his purpose at the end of it all.
Right. So let me ask this then. That was a wealth of information, but you guys mentioned in your conversations about continuous growth. So having experienced this yourself and doing this for so many years, what have you guys both gained or actually continue to learn as, you know, we journey through our lives here with the amount of experience you guys have had? If you could pick a few.
Well, Nicholas, you go first on this one because I will give a personal testimony, but let Nicholas.
Sure.
Okay, no problem.
The experience of OPT does open you up to your true self. We know, I don't have time to tell the story of how I ended up being a full psychologist. I kind of fell into that because of you.
Nicholas, you did not fall into that. God had a plan for you, my boy.
Yeah. Kind of roped me in, you know, you have nothing better to do. So yeah.
And once I grabbed hold of him, I said, we have a male in the association. He's not going nowhere.
But what we learn, Crystal, every day is there is a wealth of information coming out constantly. As the science is catching up with what we knew and learned, not just intuitively, but had broad strokes about in John's work and Sister's work. Science is now making the connections and proving as best as they can at this time. All the things we've been saying, that all children are born good. And you learn to not be that over time in your experience. The science now knows that children in the womb feel, which has changed the way pediatric physicians and surgeons interact with mothers and babies. Could you believe there was a time when they would anesthetize mommy and not the baby and perform surgery on the baby because they didn't think the baby felt? Now we know better. Now we know better. So there's a lot of change coming out. There's a lot of information on how the brain works, how we process information, how we store memories, different techniques that we can use to access those memories, how trauma, for example, affects us long term. Complex PTSD, complex PTSD, which is not listed in the DSM, really indicates a rewiring of the brain in ways that we only now beginning to fully understand, and the long-term effects. You might be walking around fine, but suffering from those after effects. Your relationships are in shambles. Your relationship with God is in shambles. You're struggling with things at work, or you have ongoing what we call dysthymia, or it's now persistent depressive disorder, where you're high functioning depressive. Yes, so it doesn't mean you're sad and mopey all the time, but nothing is ever as good as it could be.
Right.
There's no shine on this stuff. So we learn there's stuff coming out constantly, so that even the course, we actually sometimes we have to stop and say, okay, we're not going to add any more information because we'll never stop changing. So we have to stop, use it for a while, and then say, okay, we're going to upgrade again. So that's constantly going on with us. And what we present now is vastly different from what we started out, or what I met even as recent as 10 years ago.
Yeah, that is very, very true. There has been a continuous development of the program. So sometimes we may drop something because there's expanded knowledge on that particular point and replace it with the expanded knowledge. But we always stick true to the experiential aspect of the course to make sure and to create the environment that people can actually get the most benefit out of the course. So the course is not 5 weeks every day for the week. It's 1 day.
Right.
1 day.
1 day per week for 5 weeks. So it's really about 15 to 17 contact hours that the course covers.
So you talk about, go ahead. Yeah.
Go ahead. No, Crystal, you go
ahead.
ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm going to switch
to question. Say is that this is not, as Nicholas said before, this not because we are Catholics, this is just for Catholics.
Right.
I have presented, and I'm sure Nicholas has too. I have presented, and as a matter of fact, we were more welcomed outside of the Catholic faith before the Catholic faith embraced us. Just to put that on the record. So I was doing talks in Seventh-day Adventist communities, in all kinds of church communities. Sis and I were doing talks and doing the workshop. We have done it for corporate organizations to help the staff to be able to better develop themselves and to leave their troubles at home and to be able to deal with the issues at home to be more productive. We have done it for, of course, couples. And we have done it for, I just want to make sure the family life units.
Right.
When Credy was an educational institute, everybody had to do OPT. That was mandated by, was it Archbishop Gilbert and Nicholas? That was mandated that we had, they had to get that FLU OPT certificate before they actually graduated.
The FLUs,
so that, and the FLUs, all these people we have done it for. Where we have been finding a struggle, and I will put out this right now, is that for the marriage preparation courses, it is still voluntary, and we really believe that it should be made a part of the course. Reason being, very simple. Before the two become one, they are individuals with the individual influences on their life. They come from different spaces, their family environment, socio-cultural environment, school environment, spiritual environment. And then they are coming to be one to lead this family and to ensure that they have a nurturing environment for their children. But if they are not okay with themselves and they have different triggers, those triggers can create World War III. And that is why it's important that you understand yourself first before you make that commitment. I don't know what Nicholas would like to add to that, but I have really found that it is critical. We are getting too many couples now on the verge of divorce or have been separated because of those issues.
Well, now that you talk about that, because I know we're kind of chiming on time now. We're coming out pretty crunch. Since you are talking about those issues and that suggestion about marriage prep and where you could see it really benefiting, I guess more in the recent times, what specific challenges have you guys seen, or particular areas of difficulties have you been seeing with participants over the last few years that keeps popping up now?
Okay. Let me jump in there first, if you don't mind. What I've been seeing more is less resilience and very poor communication, particularly in the younger generations. They have nothing to hold on to. They have very externalized senses of self. So the self-worth is determined by the number of likes and the number of clicks. They have very few real personal, intimate relationships, and by intimate, I don't mean sexual, I mean close relationships. They have a lot of sexual relationships that are called situationships or service providers or COVID buddies, all that stuff, but none of them are
friends with benefits.
Friends with benefits. You can't always call them friends, but that's a different conversation.
That's a different story. Yes.
Yeah. And they get very easily shaken. They're very easily knocked down. And it is hard for them to get back up because they have no faith or very little faith. And I don't mean capital F faith, not a religious persuasion. They have no small f faith, no confidence that the issue will work out, that they will be able to find a solution. And they struggle. So that makes coming together as a unit challenging because any bump they hit is now a major disaster. And when they come, in my experience, you come to me and I look at it and say, but this is not a big deal. Or if you look at it from here, it's not such a big deal. You can do this, you can do this. And they're like, oh, yeah, okay. But the resilience and the communication, very, very sadly lacking.
And the thing is, Nicholas, that most of the times they don't really know who they are. They don't know who they are as an individual. They've never been allowed to communicate effectively. Children, when you're growing up, are told that you need to be seen and not heard. They tend to shut you up when you're around adults. And therefore, they don't get a chance to express themselves. And the good thing about the OPT course is that as it traces the developmental stages, prenatal, infancy, toddler, preschool, school age, and then adolescence, what it does is teach the participants what you needed to get at that stage of development. If you did not get it, what could be the negative fallout from that? And by you healing yourself as you go through that process, your children now will benefit from the knowledge that you have, because you will understand what you need to do for them to create the best environment for them to be gift as they really have been given to us. And what is the thing Khalil Gibran said, Nicholas? Our children are...
they're only on loan. They're not...
They're only on loan.
They're only on loan. You know?
So that was...
so a lot of the time you end up doing reparenting to help yourself heal.
You got to teach people how to reparent the inner child.
The inner child. And this is not about casting blame. It is not, we're not blaming your parents for anything. They did the job that they can, but nobody's perfect. Sometimes it's a little mistake. Sometimes it's a big one. Sometimes a parent wasn't there. You can't blame somebody if they weren't there because they passed or whatever. But it is about understanding the reality of what your experience was and treating with it. Taking ownership for yourself and your current choices and decision making, and not just being swept by those emotions and bad habits.
Right. So as we really come and you guys hit it, you guys covering everything I was going to ask, which is really good. I didn't have to do much.
We knew what your questions were going to be, and we planned for you. Don't worry.
Yeah, that's great. But just one last thing, you know, what if the information out there now that everybody is getting kind of familiar with, you guys who may have not known after today's session, you know, when is the next OPT? Is it be conducted in virtually, or you know, if somebody's interested, how would they go about it? What you guys have planned out since the pandemic?
Let me take that one. Nicholas and I and the team have discussed, and the rest of the team is Anna McCletchy-Burke and Renee Straker. What is Renee's married name now? I keep forgetting it. Renee Roach. Right, that's our team. We discussed it, and one of the things we recognize is that if we go virtual, we would actually be going against what Sister wanted, because it is an experiential course. And once you go virtual, that you have to cut that out, and it just becomes an educational course, which is not what we do. So we are hoping that we will be allowed to open up and at least have minimums of 10 people. And we are hoping to do at least 2 cohorts between September and December, once we are allowed to open up. Because we had to do it last year, we had to do it earlier this year, where we had to do like 10 people in the morning, 10 people in the afternoon, same course repeated, but trying to get to as many people. And of course, if any grouping has a group that they can get together, we can come to them and do the course. So that's fine. But we put on for anybody who wants to join. But any institution or organization can call us in and ask us to come and present the course. And of course, we do encourage that once you find that there's an issue, that you do your one-on-ones and then you do it with one of the counselors.
And how did it get in contact with you?
Nicholas, you had given her to put on the ticker tape.
Okay,
so I am Lorraine
apologies.
And my WhatsApp is 753-2775. Nicholas is 7800703. And we do have a Facebook, the Association of Original Pain Therapists. You can always message us there and give your information, and we'll contact you. And of course, as a board member of the AFLC, you can contact us through the AFLC, and you all will have all our information.
Of course.
And there's contact information on the AFLC page and the ministries.
Right.
So if you look in first, we're there as well.
Yes.
Right. And if someone's interested in becoming OPT trained, what's the process?
Call us.
Call us.
Call
Okay,
me.
no problem.
Call me, and we'll go through the process.
Yeah.
All right. So,
We're asking these days that people do have psychology training, because minimum to be, and going forward, you're going to have to be a therapist and recognized well. You're going to need that certification.
Of course.
So we'd like people to have that certification or be interested in getting that.
And also to be committed to the original pain therapy process.
Methodology, yes.
What we don't want is to muddy the waters. You want to be a psychologist, go outside there, be a psychologist. If you're interested in this work, you need to be part of the association, and you need to abide by the covenants and the content of the and the individual counseling.
All right, of course.
And it takes commitment. Crystal,
Yes,
it takes commitment. It takes a lot of commitment.
Of course, this is people's lives you're dealing with. So definitely
that's right.
want to treat it specially, and you have to be equipped as well. So thank you again, Nicholas and Lorraine, for sharing the wonderful work you guys do at the OPT and explaining to us, the continuous development, the challenges, and just the wonderful things that could be really gained, and how it could help relationships and families and marriages by extension, of course. So really and truly thank you again, and thank you to the audience who was joining. It's a pleasure. We love having you all. So don't forget, you guys, we have another panel discussion this evening from 6 to 7 p.m. Children a Gift, based on today's theme. So tune in this evening so you don't want to miss it. It'll be on Facebook and TCN Live, okay, from 6 to 7 p.m. So everyone stay safe and be blessed. Thank you again from the bottom of our hearts. It was wonderful. Thank you for so coming on.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.
Bye.
Have a good day.